realized here the spillways from the main pool. It was about this incision into the landscape. The intricacy of the fence work around, which was done from, it was a relatively inexpensive project, was done by a repetitive pattern that was altered in 2 locations, which then allowed what appeared to be a much more random figure. If we only had laser cutters at the time we did this, it would have been much easier. But it was done with a jig and a much more old artisan's tradition, and then with copper caps on top of the structural posts. We also entered a competition for the Stonington Public Library, which was in addition to the Nathaniel Palmer Mansion. Again, the idea of the historic building and adding to the historic building, in this case, and you can just see some of the studies that we went through to look at the variations for the approach of how to come up to this building. In this case, we decided not to touch the building, which was risky. We had an archive building, a library here at the end, a little seminar room, and as part of this, we did all of the interiors, the furniture, the whole 9 yards in the preliminary design. And you can see some of that in here in the library, reading room, and the seminar room. We didn't win that one either. This is a loft in Chelsea. And as we were now moving into this phase of more durable, because I do think part of the issues about green architecture is also durability, the constant rebuilding of the environment. We were looking at materials which could actually sustain a longer life cycle. We were, at that point, looking at redoing, this was a loft for 2 artists. It was in an incredible, the building was a 115-year-old, 9-story building made completely of brick, walls and ceilings. The only thing that was wood was the floor. So we found that the room was a complete interior except for the windows at the 2 ends. And obviously the owner had a program. We started out trying to do the bulk of it in wood with gesso plaster above. Here you can look through the master bathrooms, bedrooms, their studio in the front, kind of cutaway drawing. And when the budget came in, we had to take some of it away, but we did realize a fair amount of it, and you can see the more elaborate woodwork now, which protects and makes more durable all of the every edge of this loft as you move through it. We left the brick enclosure. We sandblasted it down. It was actually exquisite room, incredible density, and we tried to match it with the pieces that we put in, and also have light that moved from one space to the other, so you would always know when there was an occupant of another room. The details were fairly elaborate, down to the screw fasteners and the groupings and how they're organized, passages from space to space, social spaces for the family, whether it's off the kitchen, passages into the master bedroom, and the furniture, which we also did in this case, all the cabinets and casework, which were all done in machined plywood. We also did a fair amount of curatorial work. This is a set of exhibits that we did for both Frank Lloyd Wright and Carlo Scarpa. I say it only because they were great learning experiences for me. In both cases, I had worked both as co-curator and installation designer. In this case, we also built a set of architectural models of, this was a show of 5 unbuilt projects of Frank Lloyd Wright from the 1920s. David DeLong was the historian and curator. David had, his thesis was that these really were key projects that held the seeds to all of the work which Wright did in the last 20 or 30 years of his life. So I just show you 2 of these. This one, one of them had a full set of drawings, Gordon Strong. We also There was the Inn in the Desert, which had a full set of working drawings. This one had 5 or 7 sketches. This is the Lake Tahoe project, speculative project that Wright just dreamt up, hoping to get interest the client, with this incredible idea that you would let barges loose in the lake. They didn't have motors in them. And then at some point at the end of the day, a motor launch would go out and kind of pull the people back into the inn, which was here. And then he had these cottages dotted up through the landscape. It was a very, very amazing project, the Doheny Ranch. It was a very interesting group. And really incredible, because Wright at that period didn't use models all that much as a design tool as much as other people did later on. And it was the exactness, the accuracy of Wright's drawings, even in sketches, was really profound to see, sketched on top of topos. And when you saw where the perspectives were taken, he got exactly the result that he did. We had a very quick installation at the Whitney Museum, mostly graphic. It was very little of the actual. The show had to be put up in 3 days, so it was mostly silkscreen graphics. But also we did some of the furniture installations for that. We actually then started to be interviewed for projects on college campuses and institutions, and this was really confronting now the criticism that I was starting to hear about institutional work. These were, in some cases, historic campuses. This is Queens College. There was a historic center to the college, which were these old mission-style gesso buildings. There was a brutalist building on the campus, which was kind of persona non grata. The administration hated the building. There was an open lawn. Raffaele Vignoli was designing an underground AIDS research building for Luc Montagnier, who was being negotiated to go to Queens College at that time. And they asked us to do a preliminary design for a study for an addition to the Student Union building, both masking this from the campus and also eventually removing these temporary buildings that were then 45 years old, these 2 Quonset huts. It was a building with a 450-seat theater. It had seminar rooms, rentable seminar rooms, and then restaurant facilities, rathskellers throughout. More importantly, was a landscape passage from Casino Boulevard, which was the entrance and bus stop and arrival for students coming by public transportation, through a treed arcade, through sculpture gardens, through watercourses, and then finally into the main plaza before entering into the building. Sections through the building show a very spatial matrix, 2- and 3-story spaces moving through, light monitors and wells in all the seminar rooms above, and then the theater here in the big 450-seat theater through the other end of the leg of the L configuration. We started to look at making the building in stone. This was all to be done in limestone. At that point, we were embarking on wooden windows, copper, a much richer, much more permanent material palette than we had used before. And I show this because you know the duality of my practice has been that we either do very, very small things or really huge things. This was a grave marker for one of our other clients who had a death in the family. Asked us to do this stone. It's a 5-foot square chunk of granite, and this is both a combination of hand-hammered stone. It's a single piece. The front is done on a laser cutter, so all the graphics and the decorative elements were given on a computer file, which the water jet laser cut in, and then this is hand-hammered by the artisans. This is a little renovation we did in Bedford, New York. It's a project which goes through a house which had multiple renovations to it. Very simple set of additions, but had all of this idea about water removal from the house, going back into the ground, coming through these copper scuppers and water troughs, through limestone drainage basins, and then out back into the land. These are, in some cases, minor, in some cases, major interventions in the building. This is all made in mahogany and limestone. This is a